Hey guys, Theo Archer over here, and today we're doing the Success Killers tier list. And let's get straight into it with inconsistency, which I'm not gonna lie, I think inconsistency is just bad. If you're half as consistent, let's say you do the work in for 1 and 2 days, then in 1 year you will just get 2 times less results because you were inconsistent. Now, people already take like weekends off and stuff. Now, if you're also taking weekdays off or weekends as well, you're just being overall inconsistent. I think 2 hours every single day is better than 4 hours every 2 days, if that makes sense. I'd rather be consistent because then that also keeps you in the flow. It also keeps you up to date on everything. You're not really missing a day. If you can't miss a day, obviously you're gonna have one day where you're gonna get lucky. I'm pretty sure that's a quote. It's like a famous quote. So inconsistency is a huge one for success killer. You want to go to the gym, you can't be inconsistent. You want to start a business, you can't be inconsistent. You want to learn more, you can't be inconsistent. So no matter what you're doing, inconsistency will kill you. Now, next thing up, work ethic or discipline. I think work ethic or discipline. I don't think a lot of people have an issue with work ethic. Most people can work. I think the main issue that people have is consistently having the same amount of workload, like the same work ethic. And this kind of ties a little bit into inconsistency, but I think if you don't have work ethic and you have everything else, you can probably still get results, but the thing is, you can get so many more results if you also have work ethic. So you'll also have the hunger that comes with it. So I'll put it in S tier. It's a pretty obvious one, but obviously it's kind of a non-negotiable. Next thing up, ego or arrogance. Now, here's the thing. Ego and arrogance is very interesting when it comes to success because there's two sides to it, right? So the first side is you have a big ego and you're already the best and you're not and you don't need to try hard and you don't need to do anything because you're already perfect and you know what you're doing and everyone else is bad and you never blame yourself and etc. And that is a very big issue with success. Like it is horrible to do that, right? Now the thing is there's also a good part of an ego where it's like I'm going to eat so much shit and I'm going to talk to so many people and I'm going to tell them how to be successful, and I'm gonna tell them, look, you need to train every day or you're a pussy and you're a loser, and you need to work on your business or you're a pussy and you're a loser, and you need to be consistent or you're this and that. And you basically do that to a lot of people and you tell everyone how to do it and you make content and etc. And if you have a big ego, then you can't really go back on your word because you just ate so much shit. Like you can't really go back on your word. And in that idea, having an ego can actually be very helpful. And I'm saying this because I partly use this, but I know one of my best friend does this, and it helps him a lot. Like it's literally his main driving force, and obviously it fucking works because he's getting killer results. So I'd say because there's a S killer, because one of the example is would go in S and one of the examples would go in D. Just for the sake of balance, I'm gonna put it in B because it depends on what side of the coin you're on. But yeah, next thing up, procrastination when it comes to success killers. Yeah, no, this is pretty bad. Although I wouldn't say it's necessarily one of the biggest ones because you can realistically procrastinate, but if you focus on the right things and when you don't procrastinate, you do it for a long enough period of time, you can still get some results. Now, do I recommend procrastinating or am I an advocate for it? Absolutely not at all. It is unacceptable. However, it is not a top three reason, I think. It just depends to what extent, because some people can procrastinate for their entire lives, and then, yeah, sure, like it's the biggest reason on the whole list. But when I think of procrastinating, it's just like 1 day per week, you take 4 hours off, unplanned, but the rest, you still manage to get everything done in that week. Does that make sense? All of the tasks that were supposed to get done still get done. You just kind of skip maybe 1 day or a couple hours, or you put it later on, which can still damage it, but everything that needs to get done gets done still. So that's how I view it. And in that area, I'd say it would go into A, mainly because it's just a bad habit. Like the main priority obviously is to get everything done in a certain time frame. And what this does is delays the time frame and builds a bad habit. So this in itself won't absolutely kill everything you built, but I obviously wouldn't recommend it, and not a big fan of this one. So, you know. Next thing up, fear of failure. Yeah, I think when it comes to success killers, the fear of failure is interesting because I don't think fearing failure is necessarily a killer by itself. I think not doing anything because you're afraid you're gonna fail is the success killer. But at the same time, I also think that's just a logical inconsistency. Like that just doesn't make sense, right? How are you afraid you're gonna fail and then you're not gonna try because of that? But if you don't try, you're guaranteed to fail. It doesn't make any single sense. Like, zero logical sense over there. So I think fear of failure when it comes to success killers, if you ask me personally, like I can say that I fear failure, but at the same time, it doesn't really change anything. You can fear failure, and if you still keep going no matter what, then it doesn't really affect you at all. So personally, based on that, I'm gonna put fear of failure in like D tier because it doesn't really do anything. Next thing up, lack of focus. So lack of focus means a lot of things. It means either not really optimizing your productivity, I guess, or splitting your focus into multiple things. And I'd say this is a pretty big one. I wouldn't put it in S tier, but it's pretty hard to get really good results in like 3 or 5 things at once. You can get good results, but you really start getting the most success when you get really good results from one thing. And I'd say that lack of focus, you're doing multiple things at once. Pretty big one, pretty big mistake. Shiny object syndrome, I guess you could say. Pretty much everyone I know goes against this, and every successful person I know definitely goes against this. But yeah, at most, I know people that are successful do 2 things. Now, I don't know billionaires yet, but I do know millionaires, and they basically do 2 things at most. So that makes sense. I think anything more than 2 really kind of starts getting pretty bad for you. So I'll put it in A tier because I also want to leave some space in S tier. It could very well go into S tier though. Might do it, might move it back up, we'll see. Next thing up, shiny object syndrome. Alright, so I don't think I need to explain this, but I'll give you a quick example. Find a business model, so cool. You do it, you try it, you get bored of it, do it for 1 month. Find another business model, repeat the process. If that is the process, then this goes into S tier. But I don't think most people's attention span, hopefully, is that low. I think most people know that they need to stick with something for a long enough period of time to get good results. So I guess by definition, I kind of have to put this in S tier, but I don't think it's that big of an issue. But I do think that if you are a victim of shiny object syndrome and you do it consistently, then it's definitely S tier. So, all right, next thing up, poor time management. Let's go, bro. This is what we got next. So yeah, poor time management leads to an inconsistent flow of input. And that's probably the best way I can describe this. If you don't know how to manage your time, you're basically just gonna do things as they come. And if you do things as they come, you're basically you're a leaf in the wind. And if you're a leaf in the wind, obviously you don't have a clear trajectory. And if you don't have a clear trajectory, you're not gonna have a clear outcome. So I think poor time management is pretty bad. Again, if you focus on the most important things and they get done within a certain reasonable time frame, that's the most important thing. But I think poor time management leads to unpredictable results because you don't have a system. Good management, what good time management really is just having a system in your life. So poor time management, having no system. I'm tempted to put this into S tier, but I'll put it in A tier for now because, we might have to. I want to keep the S tier for like the really, really harmful ones, Next thing up, having no accountability. So I guess by definition, having no accountability it's not really a reason why people aren't successful. Like causation doesn't equal correlation. And so it's probably one of those things where it's just like, if you had more accountability, you would probably get 10%, 20%, 50% more done. Depends who you are and how you are as a person. I would probably be 10 to 20% more efficient if I had accountability. But someone else without accountability might do nothing. And with accountability, they might boost by like 80%. And so causation doesn't equal correlation. So just because you don't have accountability doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful. But it's probably one of those things that just kind of boost the likelihood of it a little bit because we're social creatures. So because of that, I'm going to put it into C tier. It's a nice boost to have. Definitely recommend it. Pretty low effort. If you have someone else, competition, etc., keep each other accountable. Masculine competition is awesome. Next thing up, a negative mindset when it comes to success. So as someone who used to be a very big advocate of mindset, I sat and I realized my belief system, and I got to the conclusion that I was super based because mindset is still like the most important thing ever. So I'm not gonna lie, I don't think you can be successful with a bad mindset. I don't think you can. I think There's a lot of ways I can honestly define success, but I think one of them is just being in a state of mind. I think success is a state that you're in. I don't think the fact that you have the material possessions that society foisters on you, that makes you successful or not. I think you're either successful as an individual as who you are, or you're not. And so I think you can't really be successful with a bad mindset, because in order to be successful by the definition I just gave, one of the requirements is to have a good mindset. So, I'll just put this in S tier. Pretty cool. Next thing up, having poor health or energy. I guess for simplicity, I'll do having poor energy. Yeah, it's pretty tough, bro. It's pretty tough to really be successful when you have low energy. Right now, I'm on 5 hours of sleep. Don't get me wrong, but that's because I'm forcefully fixing my program, because I was in another country, and so I kind of delayed the time zones and whatever. So, vacation. Am I right? But yeah, no, having low energy is kind of tough. Now I'm on 5 hours of sleep, yes, but I can still do this video. And the point is that I'm not on 5 hours of sleep every day. And so I'd say that in order to be successful, you have to do hard things. And it's way harder to do hard things without energy. So if you're like constantly at low energy and you have poor health, for instance, I have to put this in S tier just because it's such a clear answer. Next thing up, lack of patience. Funny image of a snail that I'm so sad isn't fully loaded in, but whatever. We'll work with what we got. Yeah, so patience is one of those things where you can be impatient and that can actually cause you to be successful, which is very interesting. I think as a person, I'm extremely patient. I would recommend everyone who's in online entrepreneurship, if they haven't already, ask themselves this question. If it were to take me 5 years of effort, and I were to know that, would I still do this? That's the question I did, and I asked myself before I moved out of my hometown. And I got to the conclusion that I'm like, yeah, I'd still do it. If it would take me 10 years, I think I would still do it. I'm 80%, 90% confident I would still do it, even if it were to take me 10 years. And so I think patience is a really good attribute to have. But there are some people that are impatient, and because they're impatient, they work harder and they don't care and they move faster, and that can lead them to being a lot more successful. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I would personally recommend patience, but some people are just built different. And if you're built different, then I don't know. Just because for some people it would go into D and some people would go into S, I'll put it in B tier. So, Next thing up, overthinking. Yeah, this is a bit tough. Overthinking never really leads to anything good, like most of the time. And so it's kind of hard to rank it in a tier list of success. Is it a success killer? Not necessarily, but does it delay success? Very much so. It just makes it harder. It gets in the way. So it's pretty hard to rank it, but I think I'll put it in B tier. Like realistically, the only things that really matter you take care of is everything in S and A tier. If you don't have any of these issues in S and A tier and you overthink, it's not the biggest issue in the world, right? So that's it. Next thing up, bad environment, and it's kind of funny. This is just I'm not saying to be in a toxic wasteland and a post-apocalyptic world. It's pretty hard to be successful then, but yeah, yeah, bad environment in this scenario is basically like having bad friends around you, people who don't support you, people who don't contribute to your goals, people who you don't share the same goals with, obviously, just people who aren't in alignment with your future, and people who are obviously negative. I'd say it's pretty big because your environment is a very easy way to dictate who you're going to become. I'd say that having a bad environment, it doesn't necessarily tell you like, oh yeah, if you have a bad environment, you're not going to make it. That's not true at all. But it's just way easier to make it if you have a good environment. It's not a success killer per se, but it can aid for a lot of people into stopping. For instance, if you get into online entrepreneurship and you do it for 1 year and you do it for 2 years, but you're patient, and then everyone around you is like, bro, you did it for 2 years and did nothing, you should quit, and you have 100 people telling you that, and then you eventually cave in because of social pressure because you're an animal, then that's an example of bad environment being an S tier success killer. It's the number one for you, right? But obviously it differs from person to person, and that's a little bit of an extreme. But yeah, I'll put it in A tier. Next thing up, quitting too early. Well, yeah, okay, so quitting too early and quiet quitting, which is this image, are two different things. I'm not going to rank actually quitting too early. I'm going to rank quiet quitting, because quitting too early is... Actually, they're two different things, and they probably go into like the same tier. Okay, here's the answer. Quitting too early goes into S tier, but I'm going to rank quiet quitting because it's cooler. So quiet quitting when it comes to success is basically just like starting to half-ass everything you do. Like, you know, when you start something new and you're super hype and you're super driven and you're very excited and you give it your all, and you can do that for days, a couple weeks, a couple months, maybe a couple years. Eventually, you get to a point. You might get to the point where it's like, well, now I'm just like, now it's just a habit to do the work and to do all of this, but like I'm not really trying everything. I'm not really giving it my all, and that's basically quiet quitting. And it's pretty tough, man. Like it just slows you down because you're half-assing it, so you're going at half the speed you should be going to, and just because it's also quitting too early and quiet quitting, even though they're different, I'll put it in S tier just for simplicity. Next thing up, refusing to take risks. This is a pretty interesting one as a success killer, refusing to take risks. Well, to become successful, you need to take risks. So by definition, it's S tier. But it just depends what it refers to. Because some risks you need to take and some risks are just better off not taking. You could say like you could say gambling is a risk, right? And so if I say you need to take risks and then you go to the intention that you need to gamble more, then it's like that's not what I said. So there's examples where it's good to take a risk. Like if you want to start a business, that's a risk. If you want to every time you walk, you're taking a risk that I don't know, a piano doesn't fall out of the sky and breaks your leg. So it just depends to what extent it is, but I'd say that you do need to take some risks. I'd say that if someone were to ask me right now, yo, should I start a personal brand? I'd say yeah. And that is a risk. You know, you're risking your IRL friends or people that know you finding it and then clowning on you because you're not a multimillionaire by 14 years old, right? So it is a risk. You're taking that risk. Is it detrimental to your life? No, but you're still taking it. So because it varies, I'm just gonna put it in B tier because there's no concrete answer. There's no binary answer to this question. Next thing up, analysis paralysis. Yeah, this is very similar to overthinking. And honestly, I'm just gonna put it right next to overthinking. I'm not gonna give it that much effort in thinking because it's very similar and the process is the same. Next thing up, chasing validation. Ooh. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Let me give you a frame of mind when it comes to chasing validation, because I used to chase validation a lot. And the thing with chasing validation, if you want to be successful, there's a very good likelihood. Well, there's a lot of reasons to want to be successful, but for a lot of people, it's very likely that you just want to be validated. And it's probably subconsciously an aspect that motivates me, for instance, because I used to chase validation and now I don't really do it anymore because I don't need to because I have everything else I'm doing. But if you want to be successful and this is subconsciously one of the things that motivates you and fuels you, but then you chase it by doing, I don't know, this is why I don't have a personal Instagram, for instance, anymore. There's a good chance you want to be successful just because you're chasing validation. And so if you use the fact that you want validation and then you use that frame of mind to channel it into your work and to become successful, then that's really good, which is what you should do. However, in this instance, you have this frame of mind that you're doing, and then you're also just chasing validation by doing like stupid shit. Whenever you're doing that, you're basically taking away from the energy and motivation and will and reason and purpose of working in your scenario if you fall into that category. So I have to put it in S tier, bruv. Actually, no. I think S tier is a lot. Maybe it could be S tier, but just because you can still be chasing validation and still be successful, but it's just a big tool that, you know, if you do want validation, then just channel everything into work and get validated from there. Next thing up, comparing yourself to others as a success killer. Yeah, well, I have a video on this explaining how comparison is the thief of joy. But at the same time, comparison can be such a fantastic motivator, it's incredibly hard to rank. Because you can use comparing yourself to others to give up and to do nothing. And you can also use comparing yourself to others to be like, I'm better than this guy, how is he winning? And be a stubborn motherfucker who never quits. So it's really hard to rank, but I will say, just because again, you have an S tier response and a D tier response, it's gonna balance out and it's gonna go into B tier. Next thing up, lack of vision. So, okay, this isn't literal, by the way, like not being blind, although it's probably, I mean, if you're blind, it probably goes into S tier, but you know, hopefully if you're watching this, you're not blind. So what I mean by this is basically depth of vision, you know, seeing things as how they could become instead of how they are. And it's a pretty vague definition. But for instance, when you start a business, it's because you have depth of vision. It's because you can see that in 2 or 3 years, if you do everything right, you can retire for the rest of your life, for example, right? And that is an example of depth of vision. Now, someone who doesn't get that and who tells you, bro, that's BS, you can't do that, like, why are you starting a business? That person doesn't have depth of vision. And so this can very easily go into S tier, but the issue is that the people who don't have depth of vision don't know that they don't have depth of vision. And it also depends, because that's obviously an extreme example, but I think you do need to have depth of vision in order to have a long-term plan that you can follow through and pull through. And I think if you have that, you just have much higher chances of actually succeeding. And it's only through seeing things as what they could become that you can kind of elevate yourself to the next level. Next thing up, not investing in yourself. So this one's kind of big. Now, there's a lot of ways to invest in yourself, and I guess you could say buying better clothes to look nicer so that people see you as perceived status, so that then you can get into, I don't know, more important rooms, etc. Like, there's a lot of ways to invest in yourself, but I'm not talking about buying clothes, because every single person on the planet buys clothes to do that. What I mean by investing in yourself is basically getting books and stuff. And over here, it's not investing in yourself, so it's not investing in knowledge, and basically not investing in being better. And you can invest in yourself by spending money, by spending time and energy. So basically spending your resources that you have available. And I think if you have resources and you're not spending them on yourself, right, to invest in yourself, then you have to spend them somewhere. Like, ultimately, you have to spend them somewhere. And I think if you don't invest them in yourself, I don't think it's necessarily a success killer, sorry. But I also think if you just do it, you're just increasing the likelihood by a lot for something that honestly feels pretty good. I mean, you want to eat healthier. It's pretty smart to be smarter. And the last thing we have is blaming others. And this is basically just not taking responsibility for where you are in your life. And I think this is a very good one to end this on. I'm going to put this into S tier because everything that you have in your life was made and is because of you, whether that is a good thing or whether that is a bad thing. Absolutely everything that you have was your creation, because you had all of the options, and if someone else had all of the decisions and all of the tools that you had and played it differently, they would have gotten a different outcome. So the fact that you got to where you got means that it's your own making. So assume maximum responsibility if you want to change the events and things in your life. But yeah, this is the Success Killers tier list. And obviously, I don't think I need to say this, but this is a very subjective list. So, I'm not saying that I know the absolute truth to everything forever, but this is kind of how I view things when it comes to this. So, yeah, I hope you did get something from this video, and if you did, watch another. Hey, so that's the end of the video. Quick one for some of you: if you're an entrepreneur or you're into self-improvement and you need help with getting the work in, with getting in shape, making money with your business, or you're just looking for a good inner circle, check the first link in the description. Full transparency, it is a sales call, but this is only for entrepreneurs and people in self-improvement. So if that's not you, then this is not relevant and you can just click off. But yeah, check it out. See you soon.